Good morning, good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to today's webinar. It's about governed intelligence and getting that to appear everywhere where you work. Really excited to be joined by Vinod, our head of product, and I run product marketing. And we're going to be walking through how agentic intelligence can be useful to you without so much tab switching and be applicable. Before that, I want to just set the stage. OpenAI recently mentioned that the limiting factor is no longer model capability. And Anthropic said something very similar about how the differentiator is the scaffolding around the model, the code, the architecture, the tooling that make models capable. So the model is no longer the moat, right? I think that's pretty non-trivial kind of point to bring up. The models are continually getting better, but it's no longer the moat. It's actually models and what you build around it and how they know or don't know your business, which is the moat. What we're announcing today with Kaiya Everywhere is the fact that we have multiple approaches and surfaces by which you can be wrapping our domain-based reasoning and intelligence into and weaving it into your everyday work. So the top three things here are new. We have a new browser extension, which allows you to bring in agentic intelligence, deterministic, get the numbers right intelligence just through your browser on whatever you're viewing. So we'll show you that in a second. The second thing is that you can be in Slack or Teams or your kind of communication of choice, and you can invoke our agentic intelligence directly through that. The third is MCP, so you can weave us into all of the tools that you're using. And then we've always been able to embed our platform as well as agentic apps, which can be standalone hosted and available for you. So these are five ways in which you don't even have to touch our platform to get the intelligence, the domain-oriented deterministic reasoning where you're working. And the way that these five things are working together is that they are all powered by one governed context layer, context and reasoning layer. And there's two pieces of that layer that we think are really important. There's what you've declared, the metrics, the data models, business views, governance, ontologies. And then there's the derived. There's what we've learned from users, the memory, the patterns, the interactions. And this is just to set the stage that it's super important to have your LLM and AI powered models working for you, but it's the context and reasoning layer that's really critical. And we'll be showing you how we are bringing that to every surface. Double clicking into that kind of declared versus derived. On the declared side, we have what makes our intelligence really powerful is that we understand your data context, what the data means, the metrics, the ontology. And then in 6.3, we're also allowing you to declare and create some new skills. So if you're familiar with Claude skills or OpenAI skills or any of the frontier models skills building capabilities, you could now do that in Tellius, and you can do it on a both sort of a universal level and on your own kind of model level. I'll let Vinod dive into that in a second. But then on the derived side as well, it's what Kaiya brings into it already, which is it's compounding memory, it's understanding and noticing of patterns and past decisions, and what questions you tend to be asking, what your colleagues are asking. Also, an important part is the reasoning that we've built in. We've built in our understanding of how data and analytics work. We've built in, for example, how to avoid chasm traps and fan out traps and small sample sizes and bias, all of kind of the know-how and reasoning that an analyst, a typical analyst would use. We've baked that in as our reasoning. And then we've also been baking in our industry and domain focused capabilities as a part of the reasoning layer, which when you put the declared and derived context and reasoning together, that is really what is powering the intelligence layer, which is now available to you in all the surfaces that you're working in. When you put it all together and you have this intelligence layer working for you, the two kind of what above the surface, that was all below the surface and how it powers it, is on the left-hand side what we call missions or deterministic agentic workflows that will do the same multi-step analysis and do the SQL and Python and summarization and visualization, all that in the same manner. You'll get the same result each time. And you can schedule that. You can invoke it conversationally. You don't have to do anything in code. You can just ask your question. It'll say, hey, we have a mission that's built on that. Do you want to run it? And you can run it. And then on the right-hand side, these skills, these are what you're teaching Kaiya to your methodology, your way of doing things. And these can be brought in everywhere and injected with at the time of analysis. So the net is that you can ask your question maybe in your traditional dashboard, but you can be asking a really deep why question through our browser extension. Or you can be, because you've built this particular skill in our platform, that can be an analytic skill can be called upon in one of those other services through your MCP, for example. We can read and write to sources of the key records and sources that you work with, like your warehouses or Viva or other CRM systems. It's going to give you citations and it's going to be traceable to the source. The other key thing about what we're doing is that our goal is to always provide you not just an answer, but a usable and finished piece of work. So that could be a PowerPoint, that could be a visualization, that could be a data narrative. And finally, pushing this everywhere to your Slack, to the key surfaces that you're working in. The reason you can trust our answers are, number one, the deterministic analytics engine that we built this on to ensure and put guardrails around making sure our answers are grounded in your data and in your semantics. The second part is that everything we do provides citations, it's completely glass box. You can see which methods, which code was used to run this. And finally, it's compounding because of the memory that's continuously remembering and building that knowledge graph of the interactions and the questions and the queries that you typically ask. If the moat isn't the model anymore, the knowing what your business is and that context and reasoning layer, it definitely is the moat now. And we've been building that for the last 10 years. If you are a customer, I want to encourage you to check out what we're doing today. And I'm going to hand it over here shortly to Vinod to show us what I'm talking about. But if you're a customer, definitely talk to us and we will get all of this wired up for you. And if you are new to Tellius, I encourage you to take a look at our platform. Getting started is really easy. So let me hand this over to Node now to walk us through the capabilities.
Thanks everyone for seeing us here. I'm Vinod Iyengar, head of product at Tellius. Like Chris said, this is a really key initiative for us, and well, there's a few things that we're bringing together. So first off, this idea of governed intelligence everywhere, right? So each of these words is thoughtfully chosen, but what does it mean? Now, let me start off by showing the product, and we're going to walk through all of each of the pieces that Chris alluded to earlier, and we'll show why this all comes together as a coherent and comprehensive solution for enterprises, right? So I'm going to start off with jumping into Wispad, which is a traditional Tellius dashboard, right? And a lot of our customers use it. It's been, it's a bread and butter workhorse. Nothing fancy over here. But you can also imagine this being a third-party dashboard. This could be like a Power BI or Click dashboard, Sigma, ThoughtSpot dashboard, doesn't matter, right? Or it could be your own homegrown analytics view. It could also be a PowerPoint slide deck, like a board deck or a BRM deck that your leadership is doing. And typically what happens is people see those and they're like, okay, I want to know, okay, what's happening? I see the sales over here. So this is a classic pharma subnational type of analysis. When you see some NRX trends and you see some brand-based trends, and you often have a question, okay, I want to ask some follow-up questions. Let's say your brand is Entruvica, it's number 3 over here, right? And you are really keen to know, okay, Entruvica is 3. I want to know what regions are really driving the analysis. So now what I can do is I have this new Tellius extension. So if I click it open, it pops up on the right over here, which is really cool, right? And the nice thing is this can now take a look at all your screen. It also has access to the same data sets. It is governed, meaning that it only can pull data that you have access to as a user. But within that context, it can look up what you see on the screen and start answering follow-up questions. So if I ask a question like, hey, what regions are driving the most interact for it, it'll go ahead and start kicking off. It'll look at the screen. It'll try to understand, okay, what are you looking at? Based on that, it tries to get the context, use any context that's useful. It'll also try to detect the business view based on that, and then pull the answer for you and answer the question, right? Behind the scene, what's happening is we are now exposing the capabilities of Tellius and Kaiya in different formats, right? So you have the browser extension, which is a QA. You definitely have Kaiya on the browser. You can go ahead and, sorry, but slide down. Yeah. So it then asked me the question, okay, what business view? You use the summation business view, and then it asks, okay, East is leading the sales with 53K NRX, followed by West, and so on, right? So, like I was mentioning earlier, yeah, it goes in Tellius's engine and the Kaiya API through a headless manner. And what I mean by headless is the UI is not necessarily tied to what Tellius provides you. You can access it through API, you can access it through other agents via MCP, you can access it through the browser extension, and I'll show you how can use it through Slack as well. All users can now have access to the same power that's driving all the intelligence, and it's governed like before. All right. So that sounds good. So I got the analysis. I can ask this follow-up question. I can also say something like, okay, can you do a deep dive business review for, here we go. So what I'm now triggering is asking, hey, okay, I get it. Now I want to just focus on Intruvica. I want to do a deeper exploration there, right? So this is my brand. I want to do a business review. Now, what we are seeing Sky is going to do is it's going to take your question, understand that, and then trigger a deep insight for you. And that deep insight will take a few minutes to run. So we'll leave this running for a bit and then come back. So you come into this and then, so you might see an analysis like this popping up, which does a full analysis, deeper insight, and then it's running the insights for you and then giving it, right? So that makes sense. And it'll ask you some questions you can follow. Now, so that sounds good. But what if I want to run this analysis every week, right? So that's where we have this notion of missions. I can go jump into a mission. And within a mission, I can now say that I want to run this on a regular basis. And creating a mission is just as easy, right? So the way you do that is you jump into some, I'm going to actually start from scratch and show you what it looks like. And then I'll show you a finished output in a second. Okay. All right. So if I go over here, I'm going to compose a new mission. I'm going to say that I want to create a comprehensive business review for Intruvica across all the geographies and so on, right? Peer benchmarking. And now this might require, let's say, 5 or 10 step analysis. So in this case, I trigger it. I need to pick the business views I care about. So I pick the business view and I hit enter. So so what we are effectively doing is building a custom agent for this business review analysis, right? And what it's going to do is Kai is now going to kick off this mission building exercise. It's going to break it down to a plan, and then come up with those set of steps that it needs to analyze. Those steps could be a combination of pulling data from different sources or running queries. It could also be building a model using Python and then running analysis for you, and so on. And then the final output itself can be in the form of a summary briefing, or it can be a PowerPoint deck or PDF deck that you can ship as well. And we'll see how to trigger these, how to schedule these, how to make sure that they get sent to your Slack automatically. All those things are possible, right? So this is running. So it's understanding my request based on that it's coming up with the data from check. So you can see all the things that Chris was mentioning earlier, right? Because you're not starting from scratch, it has this full understanding of what the platform is supposed to do. It has full understanding of your data. It knows what your business outcomes are. We also have packed it with what we call domain skills. This is a new part of what we bring into the table, where based on our understanding of how pharma works, or for the matter, CPG or retail, depending on the domain, we pack in a bunch of business knowledge, best practices, instructions, procedures. And these can be used, this will be used by Kaiya in different places depending on context. So you as a user don't need to remember any of these things. These are automatically pulled in as required, right? So that's that part. So while this is running, so this is going to take a few minutes to build out the thing. I'm going to jump ahead to one I just built a little while earlier. Same exact question. And here are the steps it came up with, right? So you see the same question. I ran the analysis and I said that, okay, generate those 12 steps, execute the plan. It executes the plan and shows me the summary, right? This is turns out to be like 11-step analysis. It asked me which geography level I want to use the analysis on. I said I pick region, I could have picked area or something else. And within geography, I cared about East, right? So you can now imagine this same mission being personalized for your entire sales team, right? So if you, let's say you have sales team, global sales team, you might have them choose their like area, which could be like continents or countries, and then within that regions, and then they can go down all the way to the territory level, CP level even, right? And then same thing, if you take the example of CPG or e-commerce, you can again do that. Meaning the same mission can now power different levels of analysis depending on what brand you care about, what geo you care about, what territory you care about. Okay. And then it comes up with a nice report of narrative of the KPIs, all the comparison. It tells me that okay, Truvica's overall like all-time TRX is this and total NBRX. But this is how it's doing in the last few months. And then it tells me that most recent week sales was down about 24%, right? So there's a TRX decline. There's also an NBRX decline, right? So it's telling me all the information, doing the deep analysis. Now, these steps were created by Kaiya. Kaiya came up with a plan. But I could have just as easily edited this plan. So I could have gone ahead and said that I want to specify the steps, I want to edit them. And I can see at the level of, okay, what is the step? What is the info? I can see the code as well. And I can ask Kaiya to edit those steps as needed. So I have full control on what goes in. And this is a key part of what Chris was alluding to earlier, right? When it comes to analysis, there is ad hoc analysis, but then is also governed or deterministic analysis. Here, I want the exact same format of analysis to be done each time. So I can control the exact steps in the code as needed to. So if you are a power user or an analyst on a team, you might create a bunch of these missions and then roll it out to your field team. The field team doesn't need to worry about is the definition of my particular metric changing. For example, how do I define quota attainment, for example, right? That might be different for different organizations, but you can create that in your missions. And then once you lock it in, then the remaining users will get the exact same analysis. So this is how we can guarantee consistency and result. Okay. And then, yeah, jumping in, I can see the full analysis. I can see how it's. So you might have noticed something that, okay, this is formatted in a certain way, right? So I like my analysis to be top level. Always want the TLDR at the top. Then I want the sections. And then within the sections, I have the analysis and then followed by the output. Now, if you are a different, you might, let's say, giving this to your leadership, you might say, hey, start off with the recommendations first, and then you can show all the evidence, the data later. Or if you're going to presenting this, giving this to a sales rep, they might have a different view. And that personalization is key for organizations, and you don't want to be like telling that to the prompt each time. That's why we introduce this layer of skills, right? So skills is how you can control how Kaiya operates, right? So let me jump in. And the way you can see it is under the left nav, you have context. And context is a key part of what Tellius brings to the table. It's probably the most significant differentiation and value add on top of your LLM, right? Like we mentioned earlier, the LLMs are available for everyone, but out of the box, they can only do so much. And even folks like Anthropic and OpenAI have suggested that they have had to build this whole stack internally built from scratch. So that's the stack that you get same level, like same quality, same level of intelligence, smartness, and all the thought process that went into it. We are giving you out of the box in Tellius, right? So there's a few things happening over here. There's memory, there's long-term memory, short-term memory. We talked about those. There's learnings. But today I'm going to focus on skills. Skills is how customers can control how Kaiya operates. And this could be domain ontologies, investigation approaches, business logic, and even presentation layer, right? So if I go over here, so I'm logged in as a pharma user, so I see certain set of skills. But depending on the level of access you have, you may see more skills. And you may see all the domain skills as well. So in this case, I can see certain skills that describe how the data needs to be, how the chat, browser interactivity, all those things are, right? And this helps me control, right? So in this case, the app plan itself has some information. It has some playbook information. Here, this is also where I can say that how do I want the summary to be, right? I can configure it. Now, you don't need to like learn of all these things. You can just, I know, just give it like free-form text, and the system is smart enough to matter, right? There's a way to define the skills we recommend, but yeah, as a user, you can just copy paste this and then make edits. So the key is that you have control at this layer. So now let's go back to our analysis here. So I got the missions. I can now run them. I can get the analysis published. I can, of course, have them triggered with all these trigger keywords. I can schedule them. I can say that, hey, you should run this every week. And when I schedule them, obviously, I can also specify what is the default parameters I want to configure. So in this case, it requires geography, it requires brand, and then the specific territories, right? Here, we can let the user. So by default, every time the mission is run by an end user, it'll ask them these questions, and then based on those choices, it'll do the analysis for them. But we can configure defaults for them as well. And then you can specify who do you want this to be delivered, when do you want this to be delivered. You can also send it to Slack directly. If you don't want, you can send it to a personal channel or post, right? Same thing with Teams, right? So this is all available. Cool. Now, let me jump in. So now this is great. I got this running. But most business users are now not really, like, I mean, some of them will be in their territory, but a lot of them may not be in this sitting in Tellius, right? Or even that browser extension. So all of us are living in Slack or Teams these days. So that's the next thing I want to show you, right? Using our MCP capabilities, we can now expose Tellius and Kaiya, the power of Kaiya, through Slack or Teams. For example, even if I use it personally through my own Claude code or Claude desktop, you can do it through Codex as well, depending on whatever tool. So I'm going to show you now doing this through Slack, right? So once I'm in Slack, I can basically just have Tellius install as an app, and you can obviously configure. You can give it your nice logo. We can make it look like a robot or something, whatever you want, right? Give it a personality. You can call it Kaiya, and you can totally up to you. But once it's here, I can now start asking the same questions that you saw on the screen earlier. So I can say, what is sales looking like? It pull up the numbers. I can now, so let me do this, right? So we just created this mission earlier, right? And I'm going to say, hey, can you give me a business review mission for Anthropic, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to kick off the analysis. it's going to use auto BV, which is great. I don't need to pick the business view. But if I know the business view I care about, I can also go ahead and select. So same functionality that you do in Tellius is available over here, right? So you can pick it as well. Once that's that, it's actually going to go and detect saying that, hey, by the way, for this one, I found the mission. So remember the mission we just created earlier, that shows up over here. So it gives me a little bit of detail of the mission runs, what it does, and tells me, do you want to run this one? No, it sounds good. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. And now it's going to hopefully pop those questions, right? The questions we configure in the mission that determine the area, brand, and geography. And based on that, it's going to do the analysis for us, right? All right. So it says, okay, which geography do you want me to run this on? Great. So I'll say area. Sounds good. Okay. Then it says which specific area. So I'm going to pick, let's say Northeast. Okay. Let's say that's my territory. Yeah, one thing I want to point out while this is running is the same protocol that we have built for connecting to the agents from headless in a headless manner, which is using MCP, that is Model Context Protocol for folks who may not be familiar with it. It's a very popular protocol that is used by all agents, most agentic platforms. It also allows us to now go ahead and connect to other agents. For example, if you have your own homegrown chat agent or data agent, we can connect to it as well, and then pull data from it and then show it in Tellius, and vice versa. You can call Tellius or Kaiya from your third-party agents as well, and then run the analysis and show it, right? So both those things are available in the platform, right? So yeah, so this is running for a bit. So while this is running, I'm just going to jump ahead and show you some runs I had previously. So I ran this earlier, and and this is for a different brand. I ran this. So it ran the whole analysis, showed me the chart, and you can see what the chart looks like and all the extra information, right? So yeah, so all this is possible in the platform. Again, the mission itself will take a few minutes to run, and then it can deliver analysis. So I'll stop sharing over here and go back to the other screen. We'll come back to here once it finishes. All right. So the final part I wanted to show today is, so we talked about skills briefly. Skills are used in apps. Now, skills can also be used to impact how apps are built, right? And you can control how certain things are determined. One of the things I did, for example, here, right? So we created a skill specifically for in-app chat assistant. You can build really rich native applications in Tellius now using Kaiya Apps. That's powerful. And for folks who may not have seen it, I'd highly recommend looking at a previous webinar or video. So this is basically like web coding, right? If you use tools like Lovable or Replit, you can build this. But within the apps itself, so you can embed Kaiya itself within an app you build here, right? So that's awesome, right? So I said, I created a skill that, hey, whenever I ask for embed Kaiya Assistant, you just figure out how to do this. And I give it a specific list of feeds on, okay, how do I want it to look? What is the sizing and placement? All those things. Otherwise, the user has to then specify all these things. So I just gave this information. So I wanted the bottom right panel and all that stuff. So using that, now if I go over here and look at this app I just created. So all I just said is, hey, add a Kaiya, build Kaiya assistant. That's it. So it used the skill and it determined where to put it, and it put it at the way bottom like I wanted it to. So now if I open it in, there you go. So I got a full screen app. This is a rich native application you can be given to end users and they can start interacting with it. There's just performance, indication, prescriber health, and action plans. All of these are. So this is a rep level app, right? So you can give it to a rep, individual rep, or to a leadership. And now I have Kaiya embedded over here, right? So same intelligence now is available over here. It will load up the full Kaiya engine, just like before, and I can start asking follow-up questions over here. So same experience as before, now available in this chat format. So yeah, so again, the key thread I wanted to focus on all these pieces is you have now a really coherent way to, like, a governed platform that allows your end users from wherever they are. So this could be shipped to end users, your sales reps, business users, and they can access the Power Intelligence. You can have all your internal users through Slack or Teams connect with Kaiya and Tellius. You can use it from other MCP clients like your Claude Code or Codex desktop and then connect to that. You can also use a browser extension, right? Intelligence is available everywhere for you now. You can connect to it in a governed manner. And more importantly, you can control the context that goes in, right? So it has all the context, all the memories, and it now also has the skills that allow it to do the analysis the way you want it to. You can configure it for every single user, right? So yeah, so that's what I wanted to show you. And then Chris, is there anything else you want to cover today?
Let me just check the see if we've got any questions. One question that I see here, it's related to Kaiya and Slack. It's that when someone uses the at Kaiya, does it have access to all my data sources or just specific ones?
So you it'll have access to whatever you as a user have access to. So the way it works is it authenticates you through your Slack user ID and it matches with what you're. So typically we use business email. So your Slack business email and the Kaya authentication needs to match. And of course, if you use like a standard SAML or OAuth for your organization, they will automatically match and that allows us. So if I log in, so my email will be used to figure out what datasets and business views I have access to.
I just wanted to highlight a key point here, which is the ability to access the power of Tellius and agentic analytics and AI that are grounded in actually good at numbers and nuance in almost every surface that you're working in. I wouldn't take that lightly. That's a really market improvement, a major capability upgrade. A lot of enterprises we talk to are really trying to build their own capabilities in-house or they're augmenting it with things that they purchase. But with the ability to call Tellius through the MCP, that means you can slot in the power of Tellius rather easily now into what you're already building. And then with the browser extension, I'm really excited about that as well, just because I already have that in my Chrome and I pop that open and can analyze things right off the bat, like right as I see it, right as I have the question. You don't have to go and log in and select all sorts of things to get going. We're dramatically reducing the friction of getting that tough question answered. So yeah, check the chat one more time. There's a question, Vinod, about the different skills, different teams having different access to skills. Is it set across the whole org? Is it on a team level? Uh,
Yeah, so skills are two ways to do skills, right? Canonically, I think skills are generally defined at so if you look at Claude or ChatGPT or Codex, they define skills at the user level. Whereas in Tellius, what we realize is because most of the times the way we work is it's a multiplayer game for us. You are sitting in an organization and the organization has access to needs to have access to data, and then based on that, you have some rules and policies defined. So we have multiple levels of skills. There is the high-level skills, which are org level. There is system skills that are controlled by Tellius when you install the platform that defines how the system itself operates. And then there are skills like domain skills, which are specific to a particular domain or use case. You have data context, and then the custom skills are available at, again, instance level, and then you can create your own personal skills, right? So there are different levels depending on where you create it. So think of the hierarchy as org-wide, system-wide, then use case specific or business view specific, and then you have personal skills, which are your own personal preferences and choices. And depending on which level you create them on, they will be applied only at that
yeah,
level.
perfect. Awesome. Yeah, wanted to thank you for walking us through all that and just again, really quickly bring up the deck here. Again, if the model isn't the mode anymore, knowing your business, knowing your semantic and reasoning layer and being able to apply that where you work, I think is really the key now. And so definitely reach out to us as our customer will be, I think, upgrading instances or have already done that. So you should have this capability at your fingertips. And if you're new or just kicking the tires with Tellius, definitely give us a chance and we will show you the power of this. We will be sharing this deck and the recording here shortly. Wanted to thank everyone for being here and thank you, Vinod, for walking us through all that. And yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. We'll end it here.